Good morning, Baldy. How are you?
Good morning, guys. It's good to be with you, man. It is game day.
Yeah.
Can't wait for tonight's action.
Yeah, before we get to that, I want to look back at the Steelers game with the Commanders, because I thought you did a great breakdown on Patrick Queen, and I'm wondering if there's a Patrick Queen on the Eagles. Like, how did they contain Jayden Daniels, the Steelers?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think this was a game where Jayden ran the fewest times. I think he only ran 3 times. Mm-hmm. And the one time that, he did, run a true dialed-up read option play, Patrick Queen flattened him to the sideline. He couldn't turn the corner. He'd been turning the corner on just about everybody. So Queen kind of showed his speed right there. But I believe that, I mean, I know, Jayden obviously had the bad ribs after the Carolina game. He looked a lot better against Chicago, but I don't know that he's running as freely as he did earlier in the year, certainly not as many times. And that might be by design, and maybe it's because of the ribs. I don't know, but I know they look a little bit more dynamic when he takes off with it.
Baldy, how big is the return of Brian Robinson Jr. to the backfield for the Commanders? Because, look, Austin Eckler, he fills in admirably. He still has a really good skill set, but it's clear that the team doesn't want to give him too many touches. That's why they sprinkle in Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols. But now they've got the workhorse type back. B-Rob is back. How do you see that impacting the Commanders' offense tonight?
Oh, it's big. I mean, Brian is, he's running back number 1, and it goes through him. And, he runs with power. He runs with authority. He's a big back. I mean, those guys, there's not a lot of them out there that have that kind of power that can wear down a defense. And so, I'm just looking at the Eagles and who they played recently. They really haven't seen a back like that. They didn't get Chubb. Jacksonville doesn't have a back like that. Dallas doesn't have a back. I mean, they haven't really played many teams that have a back that can really help you the way Brian can. And I mean, they want to run the ball. They're a run first team, and so if you can wear a team down, if you can get to the fourth quarter in a tight game like they were last week. It's good to have a back like that that's going to break some arm tackles.
Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. So you mentioned some of the Eagles' recent opponents in their 5-game win streak. Not a lot of good teams in that bunch. I would put the Bengals as a good team out of those 5. How much do you raise your eyebrow at what they've done in the past 5 games because of the caliber or poor caliber of the opposition?
Well, I hold my breath. I mean, they got a nice record, obviously 7-2, but I've done a couple of those games. I watch all of them. I live in Philadelphia. They could have easily lost the Jacksonville game. I mean, Trevor Lawrence got the ball 1st and 10, at the 15-yard line to win it. He throws interception in the end zone, poor throw. They were booing Nick Sirianni against Cleveland. They could have easily lost the New Orleans game. I mean, there's games where they've really been close and had to find a way to pull it out against bad teams. And so I think Washington is maybe the best all-around team, best coach team that they have played. And so they can't flitter away points on 2-point tries and not taking field goals when they're there early in games, and some of the things that they've done where they made the games a lot closer than they needed to be.
Speaking of coaching, so Sirianni's record as a head coach, it's pretty damn good. I think his winning percentage is close to 70%, but he seems to get mocked all the time. You're talking about being in Philadelphia. What makes him not necessarily a great coach?
Well, I mean, look, he started off 2 years ago, 8-0. The year before, 10-0. Went to a Super Bowl. Been to the playoffs every year. But there was a second half of collapse of the season last year where nobody had any answers for what went wrong. They did change the coordinators this year. They got a nice record this year. But there's just in-game decisions where he just makes you scratch your head. And there seems to be some level of disconnect with some of the players and some of the things that occurred during games that people want to put on him, some of his post-game comments. So there's a little bit in question. But at the same time, you can't deny his overall, what you said, winning percentage and what he's done in the postseason. Now, last year did not finish well, and there was a lot of questions about it. But, they decided to change coordinators. It was the right move. Kellen Moore's doing a really good job. And I think Vic Fangio's molding a really young defense that has a lot of good players.
Hey, Baldy, after A.J. Brown, it seems a little bit fragile for the Eagles passing game because Devontae Smith dealing with a hamstring injury. Goddard's been banged up as well. It turns out that they don't really need to pass a lot because they've run the ball so effectively. But how do you see that playing out outside of A.J. Brown in the passing game tonight for the Eagles? How do you see the involvement for Smith and Goddard?
Well, Goddard just got back. He makes a difference. He's a big target. He's a really good player, really good blocker. He runs well after the catch. So he's important. The passing game goes through A.J. Brown. He's the number one target. He's their deep threat. And he's missed some time this year. They didn't play particularly well when he wasn't in the lineup. Devontae Smith picks it up when he's not there. I don't know the status for for Devontae tonight, but I know this. That guy be a number one receiver on a whole lot of teams in this league right now. He would be very close to what Terry McLaurin is. For the Commanders, pretty similar type players, really tough, really smart, really good hands. So Devontae is he's valuable. If he's healthy tonight, he makes a big difference.
And why has Jahan Dotson not been able to kind of produce anything near the kind of numbers he did here in Washington the first couple seasons? Just too much talent?
He doesn't get targeted much. He got a big pass last week on the sideline for, I don't know if it was 38 or 40 yards. He caught a big pass against Jacksonville. I mean, he probably doesn't have 10 catches this year. They just don't use him a lot. They prefer to go. They're a run-first team, obviously. Well, not obvious, but they are one of those teams that like to do that. And then they'll throw to AJ, to Devontae, and to Goddard. And if there's anything left over, they'll kind of sprinkle it around for Jahan right now. But he's not a big part of the offense. He's not on the field a lot.
So defensively, when Washington first kicked off this year, after a few series, I was like, oh, man, this is really going to be a struggle. We look awful. But I have to admit that they've played better. I mean, they're certainly not a dominating defense by any stretch, but they've played better. And a revelation for me has been Dante Fowler, who's had 8.5 sacks. How do you see the defense, matching up? Well, I think even though they've had some close games and some squeakers, I think it's pretty formidable, that offense.
True. They gave up 9 touchdown passes in the first 3 games, and I thought it's going to be exactly what we saw last year.
Right.
They're going to give up more touchdown passes than anybody in the league, I thought. And then they really fixed it outside of the game winner to Mike Williams last week. You got behind St. Juice. But, for the most part, the overall defense, I think Frank Luvo and Bobby Wagner have really solidified the inside linebacker positions. Frank is an electric player. He's a good blitzer. He's a good tackler. He's just an electric player.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Wagner gives stability. But, yes, I think, what Dante Fowler and Torrance Farmer, some of these guys are doing off the edge is more than we thought they could do, because they're basically just backup players the last few years at Dallas and didn't have to do much. But they have certainly contributed and given them some pass rush that they need. Now, they still like to blitz to get their rush. They love to blitz their linebackers. So kind of expose them in the back end. It'll be interesting to see what they do to Jalen Hurts today, because you have to find some way to play your pass defense. But I'm not saying you have to spy Jalen Hurts, but you better account for him on every play. Because when you don't, he really is a great runner.
So, Baldy, tonight you have a matchup of the NFC East halves in the Eagles and the Commanders. At the bottom of the standings are the Cowboys and the Giants, whose record is flip-flop. They're combined 5-14. And the Cowboys season has gone completely sideways with Dak now undergoing surgery, done for the season. That was a fragile offense, even with Dak and CeeDee Lamb, and we've seen where that's gone. And the Giants, losing to the Panthers overseas in Munich, that was an embarrassment, losing that game. They head into their bye. Talk about the bottom half of the division and how that plays out for the rest of the season for those teams.
Well, it's awful. It's as bad as the NFC East has been. And to have 2 bottom feeders like that, literally playing for, draft positioning right now to go get themselves perhaps a quarterback. I would think that's got to be priority number 1 for the Giants, the way Daniel Jones has played. He's not played well. They've got other issues on the team, but it starts with the quarterback. He doesn't see the field well. He doesn't see plays that are there to be made. And then when he does try to make a play, they kind of get blown up a lot. they've been in a lot of games, and the quarterback has to play better to win those games. It's not just him. There's other pieces to go around there. They found some really good young talent. Tyrone Tracy and Malik Neighbors are really good young players. But for the Cowboys, I didn't think it was a good roster. When free agency hit last year and the Eagles were getting all these players and the Commanders were bringing in all these, proven players, the Cowboys did nothing. And it showed up this year, especially when their best player, Micah Parsons, got hurt and was out for a month. They haven't played well. They're not a good and talented roster, and the record reflects it right now.
Talking to Brian Baldinger, Odyssey's NFL insider, you mentioned Daniel Jones not seeing the field very well, and I'm wondering your perspective when you look at the film on Caleb Williams. He gets sacked 9 times last game. I think it was Matt Hasselbeck say, 6 of those were on the quarterback. What do you see from Caleb? What's gone wrong? Obviously, they fired the offensive coordinator, but it can't just be the OC.
No, it's not. It's not. There's plenty to go around, including the head coach. The offense line is below average, but they protected pretty well the other day. I mean, the first pass of the game is a max protection scheme. He's got the biggest pocket I've ever seen, and he's just holding the ball, and they got 2 receivers down the field, and he decides just to hold it, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of an outlet if those guys are covered down the field. The offense didn't make sense from the beginning. It's predicated upon the receivers that everybody bragged about this offseason, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, is predicated upon those 3 receivers winning one-on-ones, and they simply weren't winning last week against the Patriots. And so Caleb was holding the ball a lot. Now, he's guilty of holding it too long and not seeing the field well enough, but the design doesn't make sense. It never did. 3rd and 3s, they love to throw, spray fades 20 and 30 yards down the field, which are low percentage throws. And I didn't think the receivers played particularly hard and were particularly good. So they were 1 for 14 on 3rd downs, and you could sprinkle in a whole lot of blame on all of it. And really, outside of maybe one play where the Patriots, got a free hitter to Caleb Williams, you could say that it was the coordinator, it was receivers, and it was the quarterback, and they were all probably equally bad.
Baldy, I think your most surprising team, obviously, in the NFC is the Commanders and what they're doing. The second most, maybe the Vikings are tied with this team. The Cardinals have surprised me with what they've done, especially in the last 4 weeks. They've won 4 straight, and in their last 2, they held the Bears to 9. I know their offense is a mess, but they were an underdog at home, and they thumped the Jets 31-6. So they've held their last 2 opponents to 15 points. Kyler Murray, he's kind of been up and down, but he had a really good game. I think 2 incompletions in the Jets game. They get a bye, and then they have 2 big ones coming out of the bye at the Seahawks, at the Vikings. This looks like a potential playoff team in Arizona.
Oh, I think they are. I mean, I think they're going to win the NFC West. They're well coached. They don't beat themselves. The 49ers, special teams blow up every week on them. I don't think they're a great defense right now. The Rams thought they were going to turn the corner last week, and then, they couldn't score a touchdown against the Dolphins. This Arizona team isn't anywhere near the team that you guys blew out early in the year. They have really improved a lot. And I think the reason why I kind of think that they can win this division is while Marvin Harrison has 6 touchdown catches, he's been largely invisible in most games. And I just don't think that's going to continue. I think that if Marvin Harrison steps up and starts to play and contribute the way some other rookie receivers have, Ladd McConkey, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., if he steps up in the second half of the season, this offense is going to have a little more juice than they've had. But they can run it and have run it very, very well. The offense line has been healthy and it's protected. And Kyler just keeps getting better. And they play very, very hard. So they're well coached and they play hard and they don't beat themselves. You win a lot of games like that.
Couple of huge AFC matchups this weekend, Baldy. How do you see the Steelers-Ravens game going? They've played each other a million times. And the Bills-Chiefs. Bills always do well in the regular season, but in the postseason, obviously, Mahomes has Josh Allen's number.
Yeah, so I'm going to be in Pittsburgh Sunday. I can't wait. It's going to be – I always tell people that rivalry, the Steelers and the Ravens, is just played at a different level of violence and a different level of the rivalry in the NFL. It's just different. It doesn't mean it's going to be a great game, but I do think that Pittsburgh is a really solid football team right now, more solid than Baltimore. I know, Washington took them right to the brink last week and needed a big play, but they've got everything it takes right now. They've got a good receiving core, a quarterback that's playing well. They've got a running game. The rookie linemen that they're starting don't look like rookies anymore. And defensively, they're very talented and deep. So I have questions about Baltimore secondary. I've had it all year, and I think that could get exposed in this game Sunday. And look, Buffalo is a really, really good football team. I think, keep finding ways to win, and that's a credit to Andy Reid and to their staff. But I think Buffalo is an overall. I know I'm going against Patrick Mahomes right here, and that's never works out good.
That's not smart.
Josh Allen's playing really good, and the offensive line is one of the three best offensive lines in all of football. And I'm not particularly with Kansas City Chiefs offensive tackles. They got ruined last week by Denver, and Buffalo has the same ability to do that and to get to Mahomes and to affect him.
Baldy, enjoy your time in Pittsburgh. We'll talk to you again next week.
You bet, guys.
All right, thank you, buddy.
Enjoy it tonight.